It was so good being on the radio with you today. My name is Greg, and I'm really excited that so many of you are taking this next step in your renewal journey. I mean, that's the journey that I've been on for quite some time. And God just continues to reduce the weight. He continues to get into these places, that these aspects of our lives that are unresolved, bringing his counseling, bringing his healing, and continuing to allow us to experience a greater and greater level of freedom. So I'm fired up. I thought that I would answer a couple questions. Because maybe you'll have a bunch after today, and maybe even more after you download the workbooks. The first is why? Why are we giving away these resources? Well, really, that question has been burning a hole in my heart, really, for a long time. I remember sitting across the table from a person that was financially investing in this ministry. We work with pastors free of charge. So I raised support to be able to help these leaders, and it's just really the joy of my life. Well, I was sitting across the table from one of these partners, financial partners, and I was telling them about the work that God was doing in the lives of pastoral leaders, and he leans across the table and he says, well, what about me? I'm not in pastoral ministry. What about my brokenness? What about the change that I need to experience in my life? And that question really bothered me in the early days. And that's why we started the podcasts years ago. But it's really why we're giving away these experiences on Moody Radio. We're taking exactly what we do with pastoral leaders live and in our office here or in Wasilla, and we've created this self-guided journey. And I'm excited for you guys to get on it and do it. So that's a little of the background behind why now and why we're giving these resources away. Here's a couple questions that I've been asked numerous times over the years. The first is related to this awareness work that you're beginning this week in the workbook one. And the question is, why birth to 13? I mean, I have a whole life maybe that's burdened with distortion and brokenness. I mean, what about the breakup that I had in my 20s? What about losing my father when I was 40? No, all of those are significant events in your life. Why we focus on birth to 13 is we are least able to perceive or interpret life correctly as our mind's developing. Birth to 13. That if we didn't have a person that was helping us understand life early on, more than likely, as we experienced intense moments, good and bad, we'll potentially apply the wrong interpretation to those events and find ourselves growing distorted. And so, if you're going to throw the bobber in the pond and have a good chance of catching something, if you wanted to invest your time and do renewal work, the most fruitful space we found is birth to 13, at least to begin with. Again, that doesn't mean that you forget all these other damaging events that happen. No, you just put them in their proper order. Probably the way that you're perceiving what happened later was formed by how you began perceiving things incorrectly as a child. Second question, won't a process like this make me more self-focused? And the answer is no. Actually, if you're like me, we're probably self-focused enough already. Actually, what this does is it helps us discover unresolved issues in our life and begin to be able to bring those into the presence of the true Jesus. Having him resolve unresolved issues causes us to diminish in self-absorption or self-awareness. It was C.S. Lewis, don't quote me on this, but I think he said something like this, that one of the main issues that we struggle with in life is being beside ourselves. We're beside ourselves, constantly evaluating, critiquing our performance, evaluating how we're coming off, how we're being perceived. And the healing journey actually dissipates this hyper self-awareness and causes us to become more comfortable just being who we are, with nothing to prove, nothing to gain, nothing to lose. But again, please hear me say this, that unresolved issues don't resolve themselves. To engage in Philippians 4, the process of forgetting what's behind, you have to identify what is behind before you can bring it to God, actually deal with it, and experience resolve something finished or a completed reality, instead of all of this mess that we just close in the back room and try to keep our attention on something else. I hope that makes sense. Number 3 is, why all this focus on my mother and my father? Well, they played maybe some of the most significant roles in your life. And how they grew up and what they brought to the marriage is really consequential, related to the primary messaging that you grew up with, how your mind was formed, how you think through and interpret life. A lot of that is really influenced by your family of origin. The next question really dovetails with this one perfectly, and that is, what happens if I didn't grow up with a biological mother and father? Maybe I was raised by my grandparents, or I was raised by an uncle. That's all good. And really, in the end, what you're wanting to aim at is putting your time into building out the lives, to whatever level you can, of the people who are the most influential players in your life growing up. And that really leads naturally to the next question, and that is, what happens if I don't really know the backstory behind my mother and father, or my uncle or my grandfather that raised me? I don't want you to worry about that. If there's people that you can talk to gather information, awesome, do it. But if no one is around, or you just don't have anybody to connect with related to your parents' backstory or these other influential people that raised you, I don't want you to worry about it. I just want you to do the best you can. That this is God's process. It's not based on your performance, your ability to get everything perfect. It's God's to do in you. Even if you just went to the last section of the workbook and focused on the turning the lens within portion, where you're able to look at your own distortions, your own disruptive emotion, your own unhealthy behavioral patterns, and then went back and chronicled some of the events that you think were part and parcel with forming those distorted perspectives, you'd be really heading in the right direction. So again, don't be discouraged if you don't have a lot of the backstory behind these people who were influential in your life. What's the last question? As I was talking to you, I accidentally erased my list. Maybe we just land it there. Really, what you want to walk away from this first workbook having is a clear understanding of your core distortions. What are distortions, or as Dallas Willard would call them, governing ideas that drive your life? If you're able to walk away with a reasonable sense of distortions that are in play in your life, you kind of look at maybe some of these moments where you overreact or severely underreact and say, yeah, I really do believe that has something to do with my value being contingent on my performance, or on I'm only okay if you're okay with me, or my value is contingent on your approval of me, or believing that you're all alone and you'll always be alone. If you're able to focus in and glean, bring to the surface those core distortions, you're ready for workbook 2.